Karen Dia from Wasong Community Service Club. Welcome, Karen. Here you go.
Thank you very much. And I'm sort of recovering from a cold, but I'm not contagious. But my voice is like 3 octaves lower.
Recording in progress.
Anyway, welcome. We are very happy to be part of this event. Wasong is a community service organization. Our office is actually right outside in the office. In the lobby. And we've been around for 73 years. We are so proud to be a nonprofit, 101% volunteers, and we were given the opportunity is that March Fong knew about Wasong, and we met actually her niece, Pattie, who is here today, so instrumental in making this happen for us. And we actually have a March Fong Eu Perpetual Scholarship that is awarded out each year among many other perpetual scholarships to graduating high school students. So, without further ado, I get the privilege of actually introducing 2 great people. Obviously, you see on via Zoom, Tim Vandehey. He's the author of the March Fong Eu Story, an authorized biography of an unauthorized woman. He is a native Californian. He is a New York Times best-selling ghostwriter and editor. He is also the co-author of Swipe, Why We Don't Finish What We Start. Today, he's not here, but he is in Kansas City, Missouri. That is with his family, his wife, his daughters, and he calls it an inappropriate number of Begos. So, after he finishes, we will go ahead and introduce Pattie Fong. But for now, we will have Tim Vandehey go ahead and speak with us.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's an honor to be here. I'm not sure what you what you want me to say, other than what an honor it was to write this book and to have it to discover that it was being published. Thanks to Pattie. I mean, this is all really Pattie's show, not mine. Because I didn't know the book was going to be published until about a year ago. Less than that. I'm not sure when you reached out to me, Pattie. It was not that long ago, but I was sitting in a Starbucks, as I wrote in the book. It's true, in Ventura, California, when I lived there, and I got an email out of the clear blue sky from March Fong Eu, and I thought, I remember that name from when I first voted in college, when I was going to Cal State Fullerton. And I thought, why is she emailing me? And out of the blue, I guess she must have Googled ghostwriters or something. And she asked me about writing her what at the time was a memoir. And I was taken aback, but of course I knew who she was. As someone who was very politically involved, I knew March Fong Eu. I mean, she'd been an institution in my life since the time I was first politically aware. And I was fortunate. I said, absolutely, I'll come down to. So I went down to her home in Fullerton. Immediately walked in, and as people have alluded to here, was immediately just blown away by all the art, which I didn't realize at the time that she had created. I would come to learn that apart from all the other things she had done, she was quite an accomplished artist. But one of the things that stuck with me most about spending the next 2 years getting to know this extraordinary lady was that we came to the conclusion that she did not want this to be a memoir, because a memoir, of course, is written in the author's voice. It's first person. I did this, I did that. And after we talked for a while, March told me that she thought it would seem egotistical for her to write about herself and talk about her accomplishments, which I think, first of all, strikes me as incredibly humble, given all that she accomplished. But also, as I got to know her better, um, it was a classic, really trait of hers that she didn't want to be seen as boastful, even though she had plenty to boast about. Um, and I've never forgotten that. I did remember that she didn't like the subtitle. So, Patty, I really appreciate you preserving the subtitle of the book because I thought it was perfect. When it turned into a biography, and March didn't like the subtitle, she didn't get it. She didn't get why she was an unauthorized woman. But boy, I thought it really worked. So when you sent me the cover design, I said, oh, thank goodness that subtitle was, because that's what she was. She was a pioneer in so many areas where, not just an Asian American woman, but people weren't interested in having a woman, period. And yet there she was, over and over and over again. So this is such a blessing, such a pleasure in so many ways. Just for one thing, because I wrote this book such a long time ago, it's like a little bit of a time machine. Reading it now, and I did most of the writing in 2000 and probably 2009. So it's been a bit of time. So it's been a real pleasure. I'm not sure what else we want to talk. You want me to talk about at this point? So I'm happy to pass it off to you, Patty. If you want, we can come back to Q&A later on if you like. I can hear you. Oh yeah, yeah. It was a lot. It was twice. My wife would know. She has a better memory than I do. I think it was 27 boxes, and we're talking about those big like legal law firm boxes, and we're talking large boxes of newspaper articles, documents, memorabilia. You name it, it was in there. I think it was 27 boxes. I think I brought them home in my car from Fullerton back to Ventura, and I don't think it was probably illegal because I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see out of my side windows, my rear windshield, anything because they were piled up so high. I don't know how I got all those boxes back up. I think I made one trip because it's about a 2.5 hour drive. Um, and I just took over. My wife and I had converted our garage into a guest house, and I just took all that stuff out there because I had a little bitty office. So I just took over the guest house. Luckily, we didn't have anybody coming and visiting for a while, and I spread those documents, everything, all over the place, and just started organizing them chronologically by stuff from Mills and Stanford and Berkeley, and then all to the legislature and the Secretary of State's office and the ambassadorship to Micronesia. All I just started organizing it according to time and going through everything. And there was some repetition, and there were some things I couldn't read, but and it was a treasure trove. But it took a while, and then of course we moved to Washington State in 2009, so I had to repack everything and move it 1,300 miles up the coast. So that was fun too, to try to get all that stuff moved. But yeah, an extraordinary collection of just basically everything from probably, I would imagine, if I remember right, all the way back to high school. But then there were a lot of newspaper articles that went all the way back to her childhood, that had been collected over the years. That's from stories that had been done with the Chronicle or the Sacramento Bee or papers like that. I didn't have to do that. I did obviously. I did go back down to Fullerton, and we had a lot of conversations, a lot of a lot of in-person interviews. And I went to Sacramento to meet with Tony Miller, her former chief of staff, and Karen Daniels Mead, her former publicist, and I forget who else I met with. but just in-person interviews mostly. I mean, there was so much in those boxes. I really didn't need to do a lot of additional research. It was I did some extra research, but there wasn't that much I needed to do because she had kept everything. I mean, there was so much there. I could have written another book.
Okay, this is a warning for the rest of you. When you send something to a politician, they may keep it because there's things that came up in this book. It's like a greeting card. It's like that.
She kept everything. Yeah, yeah, which was great for me. I had to manage it all, but as far as having enough information to write the book, I had plenty. I had too much. I mean, I could have written another 50,000 words on for just various. There were all kinds of other stories that that probably we didn't put into the book just because of length, because it's a pretty long book anyway. But I made the trip to Sacramento. I think that was the only extra research I did.
How many months did you spend writing
I started working on it. I think, if I remember, again, my memory's not great. This also was 17 years ago. I think I started working on it in terms of the research, meaning going through all of the materials, the articles and the personal documents and everything, in the fall of 2008. So between the research and the writing, it took about 2 years to get through it all.
Were you working on this book exclusively, or were you working on other projects?
I was working on other things at the same time. I always work on multiple things because I've been writing. I've been a freelance writer for 30 years. So, but I wasn't experienced when March reached out to me. I'd only been writing, ghostwriting and writing biographies full time for about 3 years. So I was not quite as experienced as I am today.
Does anyone have any questions for Tim at this point?
Go ahead.
Use the microphone, then he can hear. Probably. Thank you.
Was March born in China, Faiyun, the village of Faiyun?
No, she was born in the Central Valley in California.
That's the whole point. She was born behind the Chinese laundry.
The back of the Chinese laundry in yeah.
Oakdale. I've got it wrong. In Oakdale.
In Oakdale, yeah, that's where her family was from, though. Her family background was in China, that part of China.
So was that part Faiyun, China? Faiyun, Guangdong? Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
My parents are from Faiyun.
And I know she visited there at least once during her life. We wrote about that in the book.
I actually followed her to Bayan because I was the Fong Yu Guai's jitnui. Because I showed up like 6 months after her trip to China.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Hang on.
thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Tim. We are going to move forward, and you heard a little bit from Pattie. She is a wealth of knowledge. Let me just share with you, Pattie Fong, she is the editor of the March Fong Eu Story, an authorized biography of an unauthorized woman. Pattie is a retired deputy district attorney. Yes, she is the niece of March Fong Eu, who as a child, as a kid, and even growing up, she had spent summers in the Capitol going to work with Auntie March, accompanying her to the 1972 Democratic Convention. This was Clinton's first nomination. Pattie traveled with her and Henry on their first trip to Micronesia for the ambassadorship and all the events and dinners in between. Pattie, once again, we'd like to introduce her. She is the book's final editor.
final editor means that no one else stood up to do it. But it gave us a good excuse to get together with Auntie March. So every time I went down from Davis to Orange County, it was like, we're working on the book, Auntie March, and she had no problem with it. And I would test her brain and her memory. And actually, it was good because I was just like, this is really true. It really was that person and blah, blah. The interesting thing is that I was working, when she was getting into politics, I was getting born. But we remember going to fundraisers like luau fundraisers here on 9th Street at some gymnasium that way. So we were always surrounded with her activities. I had the privilege of being just within a year of Kip's age. So my cousins, we were really close in age. So I was like recruited as the extra person to help keep everyone on straight and narrow and keep them in line. So I spent summers in Sacramento when she was in the assembly. We were the only kids running around the state capitol and using the Xerox machines and running errands. She had no daycare, so she took us to work. And we ran around, and it was an interesting period of time because I was learning to drive. And so she got to be my adult driver and get those comments of you're going too fast or you're going too slow or you're too close to that line. But she trusted me because I once checked out, she had big cars. I once checked out the black Cadillac from the basement garage of the state capitol. The state capitol has parking for all the electeds. Can you imagine a 16-year-old taking the Cadillac out for lunch with my cousin Suyin, and us parallel parking that thing somewhere? But, they trusted me to do it. Things were not always good with Auntie March, with me, because I was working at Chinese for Affirmative Action in San Francisco in civil rights. And when bilingual voting came down, and there was that whole issue on how do you do bilingual voting when 5% of the population or more is non-English speaking. And we were at loggerheads because her office's position was it costs too much, you'll kill too many trees. But we were sort of in the mind of just figure out how to do it and get the intent of the law to get more people voting, get that done. So that was one of the big things. And actually, Tony Miller still remembers that. Every time I see him, he says, yes, we had that problem back then. But Auntie March, all this art came during her later years. She had the privilege of being introduced to people who were masters who would work with her side by side and paint, because that's the way a lot of, I think, Chinese painters learn to paint. They copy the strokes of their masters. So all these are things, I just took things off my walls. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the published books of her paintings, but she really was very skillful. She was very good at language. She was willing to learn any language, and so and her memory. She could remember people's names. As we get older, it's like names just go. She could remember everyone's name and make everyone feel really important. I think that was one of the things that made her so successful as a politician, because everyone has really fond memories of her. A lot of you guys have memories, and so I want to welcome you to join in when you want. Is there any questions anyone has? Anyway, so I've been working on cleaning up this book for the last 10 years or so. And you'll notice that the time frames sort of don't work, because we've mentioned her funeral, and we mentioned the dedication of the Sacramento building, and those all happened after Tim finished his first draft.
Yep.
So, but I had to bring it up to date, because it didn't make sense to not bring it up to date.
Oh, of course.
And so the time frame is just really odd in some places, but it's a good combination of her life, and the takeaway is that when you really want to get something done, you can put your mind to it. And she did it. And she did it without ever being a good fundraiser. Money was always an issue. So this painting stuff, it became one of her key things on raising money. She would sell paintings. And, you know, you get original. And that was, yeah, she never, and when the Asian donor stuff started coming down and started crashing around the Clintons and even my cousin Kip, she hadn't taken a whole lot, but you know, it's that Asian money really is very tempting because it's big bucks. I mean, it's 5-6 digit money coming in. But she never had that issue of having that money coming in. But her campaigns always limped along because she always never had the big Democratic money behind her. But she got elected over and over again. Unfortunately, she got bored with being a Secretary of State and did the ambassador thing and did that for 2 years. She didn't really like that assignment. If anyone ever has been to the South Pacific, I mean, you'll see the mention, I wrote it in my vignette. Any country that has a Peace Corps, you know it's pretty poor. And Micronesia, we borrowed their Land Cruiser because we wanted to tour the island. Yeah, they had an active Peace Corps, so it was a very poor country. But she did what she did. She went in and started questioning, where's this money? Where's this U.S. aid money going? And whose pocket is it lining? So we have an example in Auntie March of being always a stand-up sort of politician. None of this dirtiness that we have nowadays. And it's something that we have to hope for, that will come around again, that we'll have clean politics. So I am privileged to be the person, the family member in charge of getting this book out. And so if you want to encourage your libraries to go get it, apparently libraries have to vet books before they actually even order it. We've explored donating, but they don't automatically accept. So they really need to want it. So it's available at Eastwind Books, and I'm going to have it on Amazon pretty soon. And yeah. So is there any questions for me or Tim?
I got a question. So one of the co-authors, I guess, or writers, Karen Daniels-Mead, how did she get involved?
She was a staffer. She was the communication director, so she knew it all. Is that right?
That's correct.
So she was the public relations office, sort of PIO for the Secretary of State's office for a long time, and she worked her way. If you see in the very intro, she really worked her way up in the Secretary of State's office. And so how did you guys?
Was she a close friend, or was she just someone you worked with, or a close friend? Or
She was an employee of the Secretary of State's office. How did you interface with Karen?
If I remember right, I met with her in Sacramento, and we talked through the book and the different stories and things. Most of my interface with her was, I think she was the one who collected and curated most of the massive, treasure trove of material. I think that was mostly Karen was responsible for putting that together. So without her, this never could have taken place, because she was the one, I think, put together the vast majority of that material.
Yes, in her political career, I was wondering if she regrets in anything that she did not do.
I'm not sure if she regretted when Kip was running for U.S. Senate against Barbara Boxer. That was really torturous, because how can a mom not endorse her son? But it burned her relationship with the Democrats. I think that was a major regret. But, you know, I'm not sure if the result would have been any different. She probably should have kept on doing Secretary of State until she termed out. But then when Clinton was becoming president, then it was her time to try to move out to something better and different and overseas. She loved traveling, so the idea of being an ambassador to an Asian country was really very appealing. But you know, she ends up in Micronesia, which is really poor. She really wanted to go to Singapore, or she wanted to go to China.
Yeah. Well, I always got the sense that she regretted, you know, she did run for her old job after the ambassadorship, and I think she regretted that she wasn't able to win. I forget who she ran against, though. I'd have to look that up. But you know, she ran for Secretary of State again after the ambassador position, and didn't win that election. So I know she had some regret about that, but that was. The die was cast.
She found retirement very boring.
Yeah.
It bored her to death. And she loved, Auntie March always wanted to look good. That hair, we don't have a picture. That hair took a lot of effort. And
the picture behind you. Yeah. The picture's behind you.
Okay. And like when I was assigned to go stay with Auntie March when she needed extra companionship down at OC, there were extra hair plan appointments woven into the schedule because I couldn't do hair. But she loved being adored. She loved, and that comes, and Kip says it in the book, when you're elected and your current elected position, everyone loves you, but when you're retired, you fall by the, and I think probably she should have stayed at Secretary of State for one more term and milked it because she loved it so much. And she had this crew. I mean, Tony Miller ran the place and got the place in shape. And so she could just leave it and do all this other stuff because you'll read in the book that she was doing the World Trade Commission stuff. Mm-hmm. She loved that because it got her meeting all sorts of foreign dignitaries who loved her and kissed her toes and called her your highness and all that. She loved that attention. Once we went to the museum in LA to go see a King Tut museum or something like that, and we just bought regular tickets. It really bummed her out that it wasn't March Fong Eu coming in to see the exhibit. It was like just a regular person. She loved the special attention of being recognized. But she was her own person though. I saw it. This is going to be Anti-March Bling Day, so this is the one piece I inherited. But she would wear fake stuff too, and so she had a real good sense of humor. Once I went down to Southern Cal to visit, and I took 2 dogs and 3 cats, and she didn't have any problem with that. But I let my menagerie run her apartment. She loved having company. She loved being taken out. She loved making a difference, and her commitment for doing the right thing was always there. So,
Pattie, I can think of something else that she regretted, although it's kind of a funny regret. She and I talked about I think it was the 1994 gubernatorial election. I think that's when Schwarzenegger won and like 200 candidates won or ran, including Gary Coleman and some porn stars and things like that. She was appalled by that whole show. She thought it made a joke of government, and she just thought it was ridiculous. She complained about that to me for a good hour one time on a phone call, that she thought how silly the whole thing was. Actually, she took it seriously. Government was her life, and she took it very seriously, which she should.
She would be appalled with the status of the American democracy right now. I mean, yes. She really does. Yeah. Anyway, do we need to wrap? Oh, question, Henry?
Whenever there are news reports about March Fong Eu, the first thing that they will say is that she was opposed to paid toilets. And
Yeah.
she gained quite well known for opposing paid toilets. At the same time, I think many of the news articles had this kind of nuance perspective that she's a lightweight legislator because she only could do post-paid toilet, that she did not have a kind of a huge legislative agenda. And I wonder, Tim, when you were interviewing her, what was her attitude or feelings about how she was characterized by the general press?
She never said anything. She never expressed any regret to me anyway about that. She knew what she was doing when she made that. She destroyed the toilet on the steps in Sacramento. She knew exactly what she was doing. She said that she knew she would be more effective as a legislator if she was better known. And that was her vehicle for being better known. And apart from the fact that she thought it was an injustice that women had to pay and men didn't, which it was and is where that still occurs. So she was very savvy about the press and publicity. So yeah, she never expressed to me that it was a problem, that she was, because I guess typecast as the pay toilet lady, because that's what she wanted. She got the visibility that she sought when she did that. I think it was, a little bit of blessing and curse, I suppose. But yeah, she didn't have any regrets about it when she and I spoke.
Because any publicity is good publicity.
She really did want to run for governor, though. But yeah, but as she got older, and talking forcefully became harder to do, she became much more humble about how far she could have gone in terms of political ambition. Because she would often say, I don't want people to see me or remember me like this. So she became sort of reclusive, but yeah.
Did she have a philosophy about dealing with prejudice?
Not that I ever recall her talking about. We didn't really talk very much about that sort of thing. Patty, you knew her much better than I did. Did she ever talk about it to you? Because she didn't really say anything about it very much to me.
I'm not sure if she personally experienced it. In fact, I'm not sure during the anti-Asian violence during the pandemic, I'm not sure how she would have wrapped her mind around that, because I'm not. But then on the other hand, that whole thing about the adults in her world telling her to go back to China and help your people or limit your career, she knew it was there. She didn't play it up, though. She never played up being Chinese.
I got the sense that if she was discriminated against, it was more because she was a woman than because she was Asian. I mean, California still has never had a female governor. So that tells you something about California politics. So that's the impression I got, was that it was her gender that was more something for her to overcome rather than being Asian.
Yeah.
Hi, Tim, and congratulations, Tim, and also Patty for the book. My one
Thank
question I wanted to say is, just hearing the extraordinary and also impressive career that March Fong Eu had in the political spectrum, I'm wondering, and my question would be, if she had any mentees after she left government. Anyone that perhaps when she left that she, that reached out to her for advice and so forth because of her long, extensive career in government.
Our most notable is
that.
Linda's son, because Linda was the person hired on to do the foundation work and do the non-political stuff. And Linda went on to do, Auntie March told her, go to law school. Auntie Marcia never told me to go to law school, but she told Linda to go to law school. And Linda's a LA County Superior Court judge now. She'd be thrilled knowing what Linda achieved. In terms of other mentees, Janice, is there anyone out there? Then my sister Janice is back there. Yeah, I'm not sure. But okay, one thing that came out in the book, though, and came out in some of these interviews I found on YouTube, is she was tickled pink when particularly young women came up to her and said, I adore what you do, and you're my role model. She knew. And that's why I think she wanted the book written. Well, okay, did she ever tell you why she wanted the book written? I think it's because she knew her path was unique, but she knew people could follow it. Tim.
Oh, yeah, that was definitely I mean, once we finally got into conversation, it was because she wanted to be a role model for women in politics in particular. Knowing again that California was and apparently is still kind of a rough road to hoe as far as governor. I mean, obviously California's had lots and lots of women as senators and members of the House. But yes, I think that was the main thing. I think she wanted to inspire young women and obviously young Asian women to follow in her footsteps. No question, that was the main reason. And she wanted to capture her legacy before, while she still had a strong memory, while she could read, because obviously her eyesight was bad at that point because of the infections that she'd experienced. So I think she wanted to still be able to read what I wrote. While she was still able to do that. So
I don't think she actually ever read what you wrote. I read some
Really?
of it. I read a lot of it to her,
I didn't know that.
but I don't think she actually, did it herself.
Well, her eyesight was definitely. I think she had vision. If I remember correctly, vision in one eye
Yeah.
mostly. By 2009, 2010. So yeah, that doesn't. I'm glad you were there for her, though. That was great. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So when Matt decided to run politically in the many different areas, what was her thoughts about that? Particularly, they were opposite parties.
I think she was proud of him doing it. I'm not. Well, my perspective is that the Republican Party used him. He was window dressing, and he was a convenient person. At Matt's funeral, all the big wigs went up. Wilson, all the big guys, they all said, we loved Matt Fong because he ran against Barbara Boxer repeatedly at the funeral. That's the only reason they loved him, because he was willing to run against Barbara Boxer, because it was a loser race anyway, right? Fortunately, her relationship with Matt got better at the end, so they had much better, closer relationship. But I don't think did they ever talk politics, Janice? I don't think so. But at least they had a good relationship at the end. And I know that when I was down there, I was driving her to the hospital so she could visit him when he was dying. Any other questions for us? Anyway, thank you very much for coming and joining us.